This year's project we're calling Legacy Fund, and together we're trying to build for the future. And the idea of this year's project is not just to be thinking about short-term projects, which we've done in the last few years, but to be thinking long-term. The Bible tells us that it's a wise person who is able to pass on something for their children's children, and that's what Legacy Fund is all about. It's not just the now, it's thinking about the future as well. Legacy Fund has three primary things that we're looking to do. Number one, we'd like to have a reserve. And so a portion of the money that's going to be coming in, we're just actually going to be holding. It's going to be that rainy day fund when a surprise comes up, like the roof begins to leak or something happens, that we actually have some money instead of having to run to the bank or to run to our congregation. Second thing is really about an inheritance. We're wanting to provide a spiritual and a physical inheritance. We'd like to teach our generations that are coming up right now about saving. We want to teach them about thinking long term. And we want to have some physical buildings that they're able to use and facilitate for growing and growing into adulthood and into your senior years. And there's always what God is speaking, and God is saying that a revival is coming. Another wave of revival is coming. We want to be ready for that. There are several projects that we're looking to spend our Legacy Fund on. The first one is some of the things of this year's project of Makeover. We've actually not had enough money to do all the things, and so some of the money from this year's project is going to be covering off the last little bit. Second, we have a number of our campuses that are almost at the place where they need to move into leased facilities. For example, our Newmarket campus right now is in that very situation. They're getting ready to move into their own facility. For those of you that are part of our different campuses, you'll understand some of the frustration of every Sunday having to set up, tear down, set up, tear down. And on winter days, it's not fun. On rainy days, it's not fun. Having your own facility is more than just an ease, it's also a statement to the community. It tells the community you're settled in, you're wanting to be a part of the fabric of that community. So when our campuses get to around 200 people, we're wanting to move them in, and we're not wanting to put the onus of all of the financial responsibility on a local campus. Because we're one church, everybody gets to contribute to everyone's success. We've always been a church that's been thinking out and thinking of others. And so one of the things that we recognize is one of our responsibilities is for Canada. And down the line, we're wanting to be able to help other church plants in Canada. We'd like to start Catch the Fire Vancouver. Catch the Fire Montreal is already going. We'd like to have one in Halifax. We'd like to have a Catch the Fire church in every major city. And part of the Legacy Fund will be to help these congregations when they get going, because they're going to be smaller congregations. They're going to need some help. And so that would be our privilege. Our Montreal church has already moved into a beautiful school. They've taken over this place. It is amazing. And in October, our Catch the Fire Montreal church is having to put down a deposit for their building. They've been leasing it this past year, but in October, it's theirs, only if they get the money. And so we'd like to help them. And so a portion of our Legacy Fund, our first gift to another church, would be Catch the Fire Montreal. And I think this is just an amazing thing for us to partner with another church in another province, and especially the province of Quebec, and especially Montreal. So how do we give? How do we participate? Well, in the last few years, we've been hearing some amazing stories of people who have believed God for the finances. And so our policy has been that if you don't have the money, you don't give it. And we're asking you to take it very seriously, to ask God and say, God, would you help me to be a giver towards this project? As in the last couple of years, we're going to be asking everyone to specifically pray for a minimum of $1,000 per person. Now that sounds like a lot of money. And for Sandra and I, that is a lot of money. And yet God, every year for Sandra and I, has provided the money. God has done that for many of you. You've had raises, you've had bonuses, you've had estates come to you. We've had some amazing, amazing stories of how God has provided for people. And so here's what we'd like you to do. If you can afford to give right away, if you can afford $1,000 a person, we'd like you to make that donation, and just so that we can start putting money into that account right away. Number two, if you don't have $1,000 to give right away, we'd like you to pray and say, God, every month, would you bring $100 in? And so from this Easter to next Easter, that's 12 months. And if you're able to give $100 each month, that's over $1,000. And if you'd like to do that, there's forms that you're able to fill in to be able to say, this is my hope, this is my pledge that I'm looking to do that. Third, we'd like you to be a little bit creative. Some of you are able to go to your places of work where they make donations. Some of you are able to go to family members. Some of you are able to go to friends and say, our church, the church that I'm a part of, we're doing this great legacy fund. We're trying to have some assets put aside. We're trying to have some money that we can help with buildings today and tomorrow. And ask them if they'd be willing to help out. You never know what God may do through one of your friends or family members. But we would love every single one of you to take the cards and to fill them in and to believe God. Not just believe God for a little bit, but believe God for a big thing. And again, we're not asking you to give anything that you don't have. We're asking you to say, God, would you supernaturally show yourself as a provider to me? And the Bible says that if we need seed, God is able to give us seed. And so I'd like every single person to say, God, would you provide so that I can be a blessing to my church? And so I just want to again say thank you so much for being a giver at Catch the Fire. And I want to encourage you to be participating, every single person to be asking God to say, what is my part? What can I do for Legacy Fund? Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together. Together.
Together, building for our future.